The Lunaverse, Episode 8 by Rainbow Double Dash, Ling from Another World. Chapter 3, All Alone in the Night. Full, frightened, no good, can't eat, calm, patient, calm. Snails had stopped running a few moments ago and was now leaning against a fine trellis, trying to catch his breath. He had no idea where he was. Green Grape's vineyard was large. He was a most successful farmer in Ponyville for the Apples. After all, though it wasn't a pretty decent second, he could have been right next to the town proper, or all the way on the edge of Everfree. Though Snails definitely hoped the latter wasn't the case. Unicorn Colt flopped down on his stomach, mostly so he could loosen his mummy costume's wraps, which were way too tight for running like he had been. He'd be really proud of this costume, too. He did a lot of extra work to make the wraps look like they were really old and decayed. Not brand new, having buried them in the backyard for a few days, but it definitely wasn't any good for running as fast as his host could carry him for some weird Everfree monster. The monster wasn't an insect. Snails knew that for sure. Actually, he certainly wasn't any kind of invertebrate. Snails' special talent was communicating with animals, and he knew a lot about his favorite kinds of animals, like insects, crustaceans, mollusks, arachnids, and other creatures the ponies tended to not like very much. So Snails didn't know why, since he was so important in the world. But in any event, the monster had seen he clearly wasn't any kind of those things. In mood, it looked like a skeleton. Not an exoskeleton, it had to be warm-blooded. Most of Snails' animal friends were dead due to the season, which is sad, but they lived their full lives over the spring and summer, and Snails would get to meet their children when next spring came. The ones that weren't dead were either hibernating or especially adapted to colder weather. But the monster, though it looked so core of like his animal friends, didn't have those adaptations, which meant that he was able to create its own body heat, just like a pony. Plus, it had talked, like, out loud, in equestrian. Snails could sometimes understand his animal friends, and they were in the mood to talk, but they never spoke equestrian, even if Snails did speak equestrian to them, so it couldn't have been a normal animal. Since it clearly wasn't a pony, the only left one possibility. Everfree monster, like Twisted pointed out. Snails' parents and his big sister Raindrops always told him the same thing about Everfree monsters. If he saw one, run. Which Snails supposed he had, though he meant to run home. But he hadn't known which way to go, so he just ran as fast as far as he could. But now he had a problem. His parents and sister had told him to run if he seen an Everfree monster, but he hadn't told him what to do if that Everfree monster could look like his friends, and he was with friends. And now he was lost, and his friends were lost. He couldn't just leave Pipsqueak, Dinky, or Twist. They were out there somewhere, probably scared as him. Sure, the Everfree monster was out there too, but that was just one monster, but he had 3 friends to find. So certainly he was more likely to find his friends than the monster. Right? Snails groaned as he stood up. "I'm going to get in so much trouble," he moaned, trying to define trellises, horn glowing to give him some light. He was still a little afraid, but Snails had always had trouble trying to think about too much at once. Right now he didn't have time to be afraid. He had to focus on finding his friends. He also needed to think about what to do if he had found the Everfree monster instead of his friends. He didn't have time to be afraid. After several minutes of trotting, head swinging left and right to lick down gas in the vine trellises, Snails finally heard something. Something else trying through the field. He almost called out, but remembered that was 1 in 4 chance that whatever he was hearing might be the Everfree monster. Maybe even the monster disguised as one of his friends. So instead, Snails quelled his horn's light and stood still, waiting. After a few minutes, he was rewarded with the sight Dinky do, creeping along slowly through the vine trellises. Her horn dimly lit up with a lavender glow, which itself was muted by the full pelts she wore as part of her Airwolf costume. At least, it looked like Dinky. Snails kept himself out of sight, as he kept a close eye on Dinky. He knew, from camping trips with his family, that something outside a circle of light could see into it a lot better than something inside the light could see into the darkness. So Dinky, and or the Everfree monster, probably couldn't see him, even though he could see her. Dinky definitely looked scared, eyes wide, glancing around nervously. Snails didn't think the Everfree monster looked scared, not if it was hunting him. Thus the case, the cult picked up a small, loose rock on the ground with one hoof, tossed it through the air, where it fell with a small but audible thump on the other side of Dinky. So he let out a tiny eep of fright and turned in that direction, even though Horn's cloak disappeared entirely as he hunkered down. Snails remained still for a long time, as did Dinky. The filly tried to determine what had made the noise, while the former waited for Dinky to reveal herself to be the ever-free monster somehow. But it didn't happen.
Okay, I guess you're real,
Snail said as he lit up his horn. Dinky shrieked at that, spinning around so rapidly she fell over even as her horn's lavender glow came on bright as it could. A nearby vine trellis was torn from the ground by Dinky's telekinesis and flung in front of her. Snails had to drop to his stomach to avoid it.
Hey, watch it!
He called out. Dinky paused before letting loose a backswing. She got into her hose and was standing with them spread far apart to brace herself, even as the splintered trellis unlocked with her telekinesis. She quickly put it down, though. It weighed a lot, and as good as Dinky was with magic, she was still full. She continued to stare at Snails for a very long moment. However, it was finally steadying down.
Snails!
She exclaimed, one hoof on her chest.
Don't startle me like that!
Snails sheepishly rubbed a hoof behind his head as he stood up.
Sorry,
He said. He started for it, but Dinky stepped back. She stuttered, still looking terrified.
I don't even know you're not really snails. It was said that this bug can get like anybody.
Snails frowned.
it's not a bug.
He said,
Only Hemisphere order bugs, insects are bugs, and the monster isn't even an insect. It's too big and only has 4 legs, and it has to have a real skeleton of that size. An exoskeleton wouldn't work, and it's gotta be warm-blooded.
Dinky's eyes fluttered a few times at that. Then she finally dropped her defensive stance. Her horn's light died down, just bright enough to illuminate the cult.
Okay, you're definitely snails.
She decided.
Yep.
Snails confirmed. Then thought a moment.
Wait a minute. How do I know you're really Dinky? Tell me something only Dinky would know.
Okay,
Dinky thought.
my mother's name is Titsy.
Any pony could know that.
Snails attempted.
The monster could if it was in Ponyville tonight. I bet it was. Maybe it was that really scary mare from earlier.
Dinky sighed.
Well, your sister is Sparkler, and if it's a star, that's her real name. She's almost as old as my mom, and her and my dad's name is Caster Cut.
Snails shook his head.
Some pony can still learn that in town, I bet. If they ask. Tell me something older.
The filly let out a long groan.
Okay, fine. Last year, me and Skula got into a fight during recess after I said Rainbow Dash was lazy. Miss Julie needs to bring it up.
She glanced down, scuffing her hoof to the ground.
Skula won though.
She scuffed her hoof a second time, one ear flicking.
She bit my ear.
Snails tried to think back of the fight.
Oh yeah,
He said, then laughed.
you're trying to stop her by shoving your macaroni picture in your face. This girl who just started eating it.
Dinky looked up at Snails' laughter, still looking annoyed, but after several long seconds he smiled as well. The fight had been last year, after all. Scootaloo and Dinky had made up with each other, and were friends now.
So, you got the buck. You're a free monster.
Snails took a moment to consider, but it shook its head.
No, it couldn't know about the fight. I don't see how anyway.
He tried up to Dinky and gave her a friendly nuzzle to reassure her.
So, you're Dinky.
She leaned into the nuzzle wholeheartedly, wrapping one hoof around Snails, and after a moment, Snails they felt wetness from her shoulder from where Dinky buried her face.
Dinky?
The fillies took a sighing breath, and Snails realized he was crying. Dinky grabbed Snails' tire.
Sorry.
She whispered.
I was all alone and scared. And there's this monster out there and it was eating us.
Oh, it's okay.
Snails said, hugging Dinky with both front hooves and letting her cry. Sometimes ponies just needed to cry to help them feel better. Snails was tall and kind of lanky. He didn't think it was a very good shoulder to cry on. Personally, he still had to do his best for Dinky, same as he would for any pony.
If you and me are together, all we have to do is find Twist and Pipsqueak. Then we can go back to Ponyville and get some adults to deal with the monster.
Dinky's head nodded a little against Snails' shoulder. She took in a long breath again, squeezed Snails a little tighter. Then let go and nod.
Okay,
She said,
let's get going.
Pesky and Twist moved through the vine trellises, looking around as best they could when they could barely see more than a few feet in front of them, not only because of the occasional moonlight breaking through the clouds. They were completely lost. They knew that much. They normally couldn't have been very worried about that, since Green Grace's vineyard was big, yes, but not so big they could become lost forever. If they picked a direction and kept to it, they either became to a road, Pineville itself, or the ever-free forest after 10 minutes of trotting at most. However, the fact that at any moment they might bump into a horrible bug thing that wanted to eat them and had a way of making them forget that detail. As far as either earth pony was concerned, the vineyard went on forever. It didn't help that instead of trotting along, they were creeping at a pace that would have made a turtle ask them to get a move on. It took what felt like hours for them to finally encounter something other than more vine trellises. Up ahead, and there was a large, dark shape. Twisted Pipsqueak had noticed it and was hidden from it as quietly as possible at first. But when the moon fully broke through the clouds, it revealed to only be an old shack with a single window. It wasn't even a creepy shack, so as you could see, it was standing up nice and straight. And it looked like it was recently painted. It was the grapevines growing around along its side for ambience. A single window surrounded by stylized hearts. Of course, as a few dozen feet beyond the shack, the two foes saw a much more foreboding shape. Another split rail fence. This one lined with chicken wire, and beyond it, the outline of twisted, gnarled trees that seemed to grow in entirely the wrong shapes, either twining around each other at the roots for the boughs. Hey, guys, you're a couple in a horror movie situation, and there's a shack. You know what this means?
Painting, and maybe some variety, some friendship moments.
Of course! Pipsqueak cut right up to Twist, leaning over to her so she could hear him clearly.
Lost the other three first,
he whispered.
I know,
Twist whispered back.
What do we do if the bug thing took Dinky or Snails and
Twist shook her head.
I don't know, but we could check it out with a sack.
Pipsqueak blinked a few times.
Never wouldn't,
he whispered harshly.
That's exactly what the bug thing would make it stare outside the Everfree. Or what if it was some sort of scary story monster?
Twist turned to look at him.
Exactly, she hissed. Which means that if Dinky or Snails were captured by it, then they'll be in there.
Pipsqueak couldn't deny that logic. He turned to look back at the shack. Every single instinct made the foal told him not to go in there. Don't make a stupid choice like ponies always did in the scary monster stories. Keep out of the obviously spooky places. Don't investigate the weird sound. Don't split up. Just run away and keep running. But it was one thing to be sitting in bed, thinking about how smart and clever he'd be if he ever was in those situations. It was another to actually be in that situation and know that he wasn't just looking out for himself, but for his friends too.
Okay,
he stuttered. Come on. The two crept up, no faster than before. Both were worried for their friends, yes, but it wouldn't do to be caught by the monster before they could rescue them. When they were practically on top of the shed, Pipsqueak's hoof came down on something other than dirt, something small and metal. Looking down, he saw it was a broken lock, bar eaten through by something caustic, though whatever it had has long since gone inert. Pipsqueak looked back up at the shack. All of a sudden, the fact that it was actually painted nicely, looked clean and tidy from the outside didn't help. It was a creepy shack in the middle of Green Grace's field that he and Twist were about to go into, and probably get eaten by a horrible bug thing. But Dinky might be in there. Or Snails.
Oh, he's concerned about Dinky first.
Don't stop my toy shop. Stealing himself, Pipsqueak drew himself up to his full height and came upon the door. Pointing a hoof on it, before Twist could stop him, he pulled it open. It creaked loudly as it did. Pipsqueak backed away from the door, and then felt himself getting knocked lightly upside the head by Twist.
Oi!
He hissed, making sure to keep his voice low as he read where Twist had hit him.
What's that for?
For being stupid, Twist whispered back.
What if the bug thing is in there? We could have sneaked up on it.
Pipsqueak looked back at the shack. Oh, he said. Well, it was too late now. Both fools stared at the entrance of the shack, its dark interior, but nothing came out to menace even after a full minute of waiting. The two carefully made their way forward and peeked inside. The shack was just as clean on the inside as on the outside. at least from what the two foals could see by the moonlight that streamed in through the shack's one window. The floor was wooden, it slightly raised off the ground beneath it, with a straw mat for standing on the far end of the tool bench. There were various farming tools hanging from the ceiling, or leaned against one wall, while cabinets leaned against another wall. And over there, if you look to your left, you're going to see Leatherface.
Green Grace is really organized.
Twist noticed softly as he stepped into the shed. There wasn't anywhere for something to hide in the shed, so the two weren't afraid of an ambush, at least. Once he were inside, Twist grabbed the door and pulled it closed. She let the pit squeak.
Okay, so thinking of snails,
She raised her hope to stop an annoyance, but checked herself one last moment.
I'm here. Doesn't look like the bug thing's been here either.
Pit squeak noted, wandering over to the window. He had climbed up onto a stool and then onto a countertop that lined the wall of the shed to look out about it.
If we were all together, I say we huddle up in here and wait for morning.
Twist nodded that as Pit squeak hopped from the counter with the stool towards the mat. Then let out a cry of fright as the mat collapsed under him. Twist let out a shout herself, rushing forward to see what had happened. Apparently, she found that the mat had been covering a hole in the floor, and even the ground beneath it.
Are you okay?
Twist asked. Pit squeak picked himself up.
Yeah,
he said, looking up. The hole he was in was a little deeper than he was tall, while standing on 4 legs, though he reared up just as he was able to look out over the edge. He couldn't see much else due to the lack of light, but feeling around, he found it wasn't just a hole in the ground, but an actual tunnel beneath it that led. He didn't really care where, actually, because a dark, scary tunnel under a creepy shed in a vineyard and light that was a hunting ground of a bug thing from Everfree Forest was emphatically not something he wanted to investigate. The moment he found it, he turned around to climb out. But man, it's nothing more than putting himself on the wall of the tunnel when something grabbed his tail and pulled hard, dragging him backwards into the tunnel. Pit squeak screamed. Twist could barely see Pit squeak as it was from where he had landed in the hole under the mat, but at least he verified he was okay. He started to climb out, and Twist was about to reach down to help him out, even as he was really hoping it led to Green Grace's secret buried treasure that she never heard about, nor not to Bug Pony's lair. When all of a sudden there was a flash. Pit squeak fell and was dragged backwards, screaming the whole time.
Pit squeak!
Twist called out, before she could even think she was doing. She hopped down to the hole, found the tunnel. Pit squeak was dragged down and started crawling after him. So he had to stoop down and squeeze against the tight walls of the tunnel. It was cold and damp and smelled of dirt and rot, at least at first. But after a few feet of the tunnel slipping downwards, its walls became wider, taking a strangely sweet smell and no longer feeling like dirt, almost like hard rubber with rippling organic feel to it. She didn't have time to think about it, so there was another flash blinding her as her mane was grabbed by some invisible force and she was pulled. She let out a cry of fright as she was dragged down several more feet, then deposited on the floor of the same material as the walls of the tunnel. Twist reached out, hose flailing, and he touched something furry as he heard Pit squeak yelp from right next to her. She found him then. She made a stand, but hit her head on the roof of where they were. It was pitch black. She couldn't see at all. But there was another bright flash, and the chamber they were in was illuminated. The Twist squinted against the sudden light, falling back. She found that the chamber was there and tiny, maybe 5 feet at most, or 2 feet high, roughly almond shape. Its walls was made some kind of green-black, rippling, flowing material that almost looked alive somehow, like it was the hard flesh of some kind of monster, or interior like they'd been eaten. And there was Stinky too. She was standing back with them, eyes wide, pressed against the far end of the chamber, glancing between the other two foals. And her hose was a puddle of some kind of green, ficus liquid that reminded Twist a little too much of whatever the bug thing had been drooling. Pit squeak stood himself. He stooped, but the truth, he was just short enough that he might be able to stand up without hitting his head. He looked at Twist.
He goes there!
Twist was confused at the moment. They remembered the code phrase. They had lost sight of each other for a moment, hadn't they? And a moment was posed tensely enough.
The thing!
She responded. Pit squeak almost relaxed, then turned back and thinking, bracing herself.
What?
Dinky, what looked like Dinky anyway, demanded their actions. She looked between the two fools and fixed her eyes on Twist.
Piskin, get away from her! She's not really Twist!
Twist bristled.
Yeah, I am.
She couldn't.
I just proved it. Me and Pit squeak ran into each other and proved we really us. And then came up with a cuff face.
That's what it was. Dinky looked between the two of them, shifting a little. She glanced down at the goop that she was standing in and grimaced, looking like she wanted to move out of it, but there's no way to do so without getting closer to the two earth ponies.
I'm sure.
She has tears in her eyes.
I'm gonna trust all of you now. There's one bug pulling between the two, or more.
If we were both bug ponies, Pipsqueak said, we wouldn't need to pretend to be us. It'd be 2-on-1. And besides, Twist pointed out, leaning forward a little, pointing at Dinky's hooves. How do we know you're thinking with that stuff? Dinky looked down at the group she was standing in again, and then back up.
I don't know,
She exclaimed, and glared at Twist.
but I do. I felt you after we got separated. You acted all nice and helped me calm down. Brought me to the shack. Then the next thing I know, you were the monster. You spit the stuff on me and sent it down here. I must have melted off with my horn, but it's gross.
Pipsqueak stared at that, looking to Twist a moment he had actually done that before, and shook his head. There wouldn't be time for that, Pipsqueak said. Me and Twist met up hours ago. We've been looking for you and Snails this whole time.
I don't know that.
Dinky exclaimed. Her horns glowed changed, thinking on a lavender hue, and Twist and Pipsqueak both backed away as far as they could, right up against the back wall. Dinky was obviously the best unicorn in full when it came to magic. She was looking at the two of them as a dangerous look either had been seen on their face.
Perfect are you?
My sister's bonbon, Twist exclaimed. My parents are up to get Tropic Spring. Pipsqueak guided. My sister's talent's making candy. I don't know what kitchen I got. My favorite daring boot bug is the entire flower. I kinda like Ponyfield, but I want to go back to the sea someday. Dinky looked between the two of them, horns still glowing bright, for several long moments, before it died down, considerably as Dinky's lips started to tremble. Tears appeared in her eyes. After a moment, she fell to her barrel, heels of the goop under her, toes of her head, started crying.
I'm sorry.
She exclaimed,
I'm sorry.
Pipsqueak and Twist looked between each other. Then, as one came forward, looking Dinky out of the goop as she was in, hugging her. She didn't try to hear back her tears then, as she grabbed both tightly as she could, burying her face in Pipsqueak's neck.
I'm like my mama.
She cried. Twist completely sympathized. She wanted to go back with her own mom as well right now. So she squeezed Dinky a little tighter. Please need to get going, she said after a few moments. Not nearly the time that Dinky needed right now, but they didn't have a choice. We need to find Snails. Dinky nodded a little as he pulled away. As he stared, wiping her eyes, forgetting about the goop staining her hooves.
Wait, let's get moving.
Getting out of the chamber was, fortunately, about as easily said as done. Twist went first, followed by Pipsqueak and Dinky taking the rear. They managed to get out without issue, Dinky coiling her horns glow entirely once they were back in the shack. They fished out the mat and then leaned over the hole and set it back to cover their tracks. Okay, Twist whispered as they tried to the shack's door. Let's get going. Just as Twist touched the door, it opened, swinging outwards. She found herself looking at Snails and Dinky. Oh,